Hello and welcome back to episode 2 of David Robinson's story, Surviving Only Just. Today, I've got a lot of questions from myself and other listeners who want to find out more about David's story. But first of all, how you been, David? It's been a while.
Hi, Jack. Yes, it's been a few weeks. Today, actually feeling okay. Good to be back. Good to do the second episode.
Yeah, it's been a bit overdue, really, I think.
It has, yes, it has. But that was due mainly to a condition I suffer. But hey ho, we're here.
We're here, yeah, we got back eventually, and better late than never.
Of course.
So, yeah, first of all, I'll start off with the kind of, might as well start off with the questions that I've thought of from listening back, and so we can kind of reflect on those. My main kind of interest was kind of in the psychological side of things, kind of what you were, now that you've kind of got a lot more into the psychological side of things and kind of why these things happen. What have you got to say in regards to, like, how do you think your kind of cousin was treated to lead to him treating you as he did to you?
I've been doing some studying for the past few years, couple of years. Found out that I base it on a learned behaviour.
Yeah.
If you look at the abuse that has gone off in the country, especially where I'm from, Nottingham, in the Beechwood homes and other institutions, my theory is that it started from people who were of an age after the Second World War. So if you imagine places that got blitzed like London, Nottingham because of the ammunitions factory, Liverpool for the ports, all those children were sent away to farms or further afield to keep them safe. So they was actually with strangers themselves. Now they would have been of an age of anything from birth to up to 16.
So it's like a lot of people are kind of leaving at an age where they were still growing up, still learning all about the world.
Exactly.
So, yeah.
They and the cognitive behaviour
Yeah.
is something that they will pick up from whoever nurtures them.
Mm-hmm.
Now, say for instance, if I was away and you had my kids, they are not your children. So
you've got no prior kind of, you've got no interest in that. They are no interest to you in this.
Exactly.
Like you don't. If you just get given, you might feel like you don't have to look after them based on that. You've not got a relation to them. I think.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So they was of an age, went away to farms, to country houses, to all kinds of places. Now it seems that when those children have come back, they are of an age where they start working. So the Second World War finished in 1945. Children were then sent back to their parents or places where they lived, and they've gone through abuse.
Yeah.
This is my theory. Some of them have been abused by the people who were caring for them. As they've grown up, they've then become social workers, politicians, whatever. They would have been around about, 18, 19, 20. So it fits. And like I said, it's a learned behaviour. So they then have gone on to abuse others because it's all they know.
Yeah.
So that's my theory for the white population in England. Now, the Jamaicans and the black people, don't forget, were once slaves.
Mm-hmm.
People tend to forget this. Now, when the slavery days were there, the families were all together.
Yeah.
So the masters, if they wanted to rape one of the girls or one of the servants, they would always be black. Now, don't forget the name Robinson is a Scottish name. My name is an African name.
Right, okay.
So Robinsons were adopted by a Scottish landowner.
Yeah.
So he would have beat the black men, made them slaves, do this, do that, but they would have seen this behaviour going off. So I can only say that is why there is a learned behaviour. So my cousin now has picked that behaviour up from the people who raised him, and that's been with him through his childhood. So he's probably been beaten. He's probably witnessed rape, incest, all kinds of abuse. So at an age of 11 or 10, when he was looking after us, that's what probably was instilled in him. So he thought it was normal to do things like that.
Yeah, that makes sense from the psychological point of view. That, like, I mean, in the end, like, yeah, when you're that young and your brain's still forming, especially like you say that some of these kids were going from birth as well. That is, your brain's still forming. You still,
of course,
it will just become everything that you know. It's frightening. And
I suppose when you think about it logically, if you put a family unit together, or if not two family units together, and you go through life just knowing that family, that's all you know, and if they perform a certain behaviour, that's what you're going to do because you think it's normal.
Yeah. You make these things the norm, then it goes back to kind of what you were saying before, like, I remember you saying that all you knew was kind of lying.
Of course.
So then that became the truth, and that
became
is
the norm.
The truth. It becomes what you are. Yeah.
And it's easier to tell a lie then than tell the truth.
So after, and kind of going back to your cousin, a specific example, after he was told that he had to leave the house when you went back, but he didn't. So, and he said that he then stopped the beating, but obviously it then became your auntie and uncle. Did something change in him? Was he afraid of them? What do you think? What was that all about?
I think a bit of both. You've got to remember he was still only a child at 11, so he would have been told, and it was a big thing. Don't forget, you know, when I accused his parents of the beatings, and then it turns out that it was him, not them. Yeah. They then must feel a sigh of relief, because don't forget they was in the dock. It then stops that court case, and don't forget, leading up to a court case, you've got all friends, family, people who know you, who are pointing the finger at you. So it's not a nice thing. Yeah. So then to turn around and say, actually, it wasn't our foster parents, it was their son, then it changes the whole dynamics of everything. Because the court case stops, they feel a sigh of relief, he's then in trouble. So what must have changed must have been that they must have instilled and told him he cannot behave like that anymore, or else he will get beaten. Right, yeah. That's the Jamaican way. Okay. For them now, they're out of the woods. They're in the clear.
Because every time that they come round, even if like the social workers come round, that even if there was something, it goes on him rather than on them as well. Yeah. Yeah.
Now then, does that give them the power to be able to do anything they want to after that? Because we then won't be believed. Yeah. 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 I know what you mean. Yeah. So that's why we kept so quiet, because we knew that after that when he started raping my sister and beating us, if we went to social services and says, oh yes, this is happening, that's happening, they then won't believe us because of the court case. So it gave them the power to actually do what they wanted to do. Yeah. As for my cousin, it was their way of hiding him. They said that he went to his auntie's. Now, don't get me wrong, he did go there for a couple of days while we sorted it all out, and while the social workers and whoever put things into place. Yeah. But then as soon as that was all over, a few days, he was back in the house again. That made us then put us on edge. Right. So imagine a child who's 7, one who's 6, one who's 8. We didn't do anything. You know, we couldn't move. We were scared for that. Yeah. Now, I reckon the beatings I got personally were because of that reason. Because we told a lie. It was our parents when it wasn't. All the things they went through. Yeah. been examined by the police, questioned by social services. That would have happened over a course of weeks.
Yeah.
So, in my head, that's why I got the beatings deliberately,
Right.
and because I witnessed the rape as well.
Yeah, I say it's a reputation thing as well. Like something that you don't, even if you kind of get off it, it's always kind of hanging over. Admittedly, I don't know, maybe not so much then, but definitely now, things like that. Like if you get that accusation, it's always there, regardless of whether it's kind of happened or not.
Well, they always say there's no smoke without fire, don't they?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
So something was amiss, and like I said, you know, people should have dug deeper.
Yeah, definitely.
You know, as years went by, there were accusations to my cousin, so we carried that learned behaviour on, because I know that there was a court case where he got accused of rape, and also one of my ex-girlfriends at that time, when I was about 13, 14, she came forward and said he raped her as well.
Right. So yeah, it all comes back to what you said earlier. Then it's proves that where it comes
Of course,
from. Yeah.
And you know, for people to break that cycle, it's a hard thing.
It takes a lot.
But as you get older, you only have a line. There's either you cross that line or you stay this side of it, and that's down to people's choices and what they do for their well-being.
So I say, do you think you need to kind of see a lot of the world and see kind of what actually goes on, and expand from what you know, because otherwise it just stays like that?
Of course it does, yes. If you look at the past press reports, the media, you've had Manchester, you've had Rotherham, you've had Jersey, you've had Republic of Ireland. That's just the tip of the iceberg. Then you've got Parliament.
Well, yeah.
And that Parliament derives mainly from boarding day schools.
Right, yeah.
Same scenario. You put a group of boys together and your parents... it's like your parents have neglected you.
Yeah.
And I do get it, but I don't get it, because I couldn't send my children to a boarding school. I would want to nurture and raise them the right way.
The way that you want them to be raised, as opposed to just letting it happen.
Yeah, innocence is priceless. We never had that. Okay.
I was wondering if you had any more, like if you wanted to elaborate more on the court case, or are you...
The court case itself, you got to remember when the court case went on, I was only 5 and a half, something like that. So I don't remember too much about it. I remember some of what we went through, like I said previously, being tied up and the things we were made to do. From 7 upwards, my memory is pretty vague.
Yeah.
Because a lot of it is blocked out.
Yeah.
I try and I try certain things to bring it back, and I cannot.
Yeah, I think we touched on that in the last one. Yeah.
But yes, there are some more questions, obviously, from what myself and Jack had pondered on, and we realised that people out there must be asking certain questions. So we'll fire away and see where we get.
Okay, so we've got some kind of questions here from various people, and not particularly in an order, but this one kind of leads on quite nicely from what we were just talking about, which is about like kind of the feelings after certain events. Like, what did you feel when like your mother left, and kind of what was it like being split up from the other members of your family?
When you're raised and there's three of you, that is all you know, and especially later on in life you realise that after what we went through. But we were probably about 3 years old, and you've got to remember the only memories you've got is from 3 down to birth. And there's not many people who have the ability to remember those first 3 years, so it's quite difficult. All I can say is that when we went to our home and discovered that she had left, you just got to close your eyes and open your mind and think what it's like for a 3-year-old for their mother to run away. You know, the reasons why you don't understand because you're 3 years old. What's going to happen next, you don't know because you're 3 years old.
Yeah.
But the worst thing is that you're put somewhere strange, and you're thinking to yourself, you're confused. You're confused. It's very confusing.
There's a lot of emotions kind of all happening at once.
Of course they do, yeah. Of course they do. And especially when you realise the realisation hits home that not only have you lost your mother, then eventually, you know, your father gives you away as well.
Yeah.
And you feel not wanted as you grow up. You have to remember they are raising you to the way they were raised.
Yeah.
But it's a big transformation being raised by a white family, then going to be raised by a Jamaican family.
Yeah.
Because the morals are totally different. And the Jamaican way is pretty strict.
Right.
When my mother was there, don't forget she raised us. It wasn't my father. He was never around.
Yeah, yeah. You mentioned that. He's out partying. Yeah.
So it's a big thing.
Yeah.
It's a big thing. How I felt, like I say, at that time, I don't know. I know how I feel now.
Yeah, yeah.
But then, as a 3-year-old, like I say, you just close your eyes and imagine.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I don't think that even then it kind of begins to tip. It's like tip of the iceberg, isn't it? Really.
Yeah.
So yeah. So like, you kind of go back to, you mentioned like being brought up by Jamaicans, and then you say that you, in the last episode, you said that you were brought up for one point in a Jamaican house share.
Yeah.
So like, do you want to talk more about that? Like, what was it? All the parties that were kind of going on while you were while you were growing up.
Yeah, being brought up by Jamaicans is a strict upbringing.
Yeah.
Which is not the end of the world, because sometimes it stands you good.
Yeah.
It gives you manners. You know where to go, what to do, not what to do. So they do instill some good morals in you.
Yeah.
The culture is, like I say, totally different. When in the Windrush days, when Jamaicans first came to Jamaica, the only affordable housing they could do was to house share.
Yeah.
So they'd all live in a house, all cook meals. And to be fair, it was a good way to live.
Yeah.
And everybody was, your auntie was there, so she was in charge of your granddad or, you know, or the person in the house was.
Yeah, so these house shares were very family orientated as well.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. And that's how they managed to save up. People, the Windrush generation managed to save money up to be able to get rent or buy affordable housing. Sometimes there were parties in there, blues parties.
Yeah.
That was, for me, crazy times because we were kids from the age of 3 up till, you know, we left home when we went to father's house. They used to have blues parties. It was their way of making extra money.
Yeah.
Playing the reggae music that they wanted to, smoking cannabis. You know, sometimes playing cards if it was lighter. They were the gambling houses. They were good times when they were done right.
Yeah.
The times it wasn't right is when you're putting children to sleep in a bedroom with the reggae music blaring out till 6 the next day. I wouldn't instill that in my children.
Yeah.
In fact, my daughter would tell me, "Dad, switch that music on," if I had parties in the house. But that was the norm. That was the Jamaican culture.
Yeah.
And it was, you know, it took some getting used to. A lot of times we used to hate going to my father's house because we knew he was going to have a blues party.
Right.
But that can be quite scary as well because you've got strange men.
Yeah, just coming in and out of the house as and when.
In and out of the house as and when, high on cannabis. You're in a room, you know, you don't know what's going to happen to you.
Yeah, a bit of a volatile environment.
Of course it was.
To grow up in. So you mentioned a lot about like the different members of your family that were around in those houses and things like that. Is there anything you've got to say about them for like for example, uncles, aunties, things like that?
We have a large family, a
Yeah.
large extended family.
Yeah, yeah.
And like I said to you previously, totally this side there was 19 siblings,
Right, yeah.
16 which were half, but in Jamaican culture we don't say half brothers. And most of us have got our issues from back in those days. And it was when you get all 18 together, it becomes dysfunctional,
Yeah.
because we then realise we've got new brothers when they come along, new sisters, and it's, don't forget, when you've got nobody, you'll then feel pushed out because new siblings are coming along.
Right, okay. Yeah, I can see that, yeah.
And like I said to you before, you know, when I was at college, we did a study on the middle child, if you like.
Yeah, yeah.
And you know, when I counsel people today and tell them this, they then it hits home that yes, you know,
That kind of realisation that, yeah, maybe that's... It's not as if they go out the way to, but it's just... it's something that's been evident.
yeah, of course.
Yeah.
I've got a daughter who's jealous. Sorry, I've got a daughter who I feel is jealous of my last one.
Right.
And again, she's in the middle
Yeah.
because I've raised 5 children, but that's beside the point. She then thinks that I favour the youngest as opposed to her, when in reality I don't. But a lot of children in the middle feel left out because the youngest one, like I said previously, is the baby.
Yeah.
So it becomes a favourite and what he cuddled throughout life. And the oldest child is the favourite because they were first.
Yeah,
Firstborn.
It's because you got the first child who was like, might be off because they're older, might be off doing something, either have left, done really well or one thing or the other. And then you've got the youngest who's might need looking after, things like that. And then you've just got the middle child who isn't quite either of those things. So yeah, I know.
That's right, yeah. And it becomes a sense of reality where you think you're pushed out. So you feel neglected, you feel like your parents don't really care about you.
Right, so another question here is, like, what were your feelings while growing up in the foster home?
Well, again, being a middle child, and don't forget the reasons why. I witnessed my sister being raped by our foster parent.
Yeah.
So I had double the beatings just for that reason alone. But being a middle child, like I said, my younger brother, he was a sort of favourite, although he still went through a lot of beatings like myself and a lot of pain. And my sister, she was the one who was being raped by a foster parent, so she was his favourite, obviously. So I got it all. It all, and that's why I tried to look at the middle child syndrome. But you feel isolated. I felt isolated, not wanted by anybody. My brother, my siblings, brother and sister, I cannot remember a lot after that first night of seeing my sister being raped.
Right.
I do remember some things, and like I said when I started this, I hope certain things jog my memory.
Yeah.
But yeah, I felt alone, I felt isolated, not wanted. Our foster parent used to say, "You dirty half-caste, your daddy didn't want you, your mother didn't want you, she ran off and left you." You know, how did that make me feel?
Yeah, there was a lot of, never mind the physical, there was tons of emotional abuse going on as well.
Of course, you just feel like you're not wanted, nobody wants you. And you grow up believing that because of what we were, or who we were, people didn't want us.
Yeah. Yeah.
And the pain itself, I can't remember. You sort of block the pain out. When things happen to me now, it's more emotional. That's finding my emotions. It's emotional, not physical. And when I used to fight in the old days, I used to go out, and if somebody punched me, I didn't feel that pain because I had worse when I was a baby, a child.
But like, do you think is that down to the kind of emotional side and mental side of things as well, that you like, and mind the fact that you say you're used to it physically, but like, is that still kind of your head blocking out that pain kind of thing? Do you
Of course,
think?
yeah, of course. You block it out. You have to. Otherwise, like I said, when you're lying there and you're crying that much that you're not crying.
If you couldn't block it out, then what would you?
Exactly. So,
yeah.
So when people attack me, which is not very often, you don't feel that pain because that pain is nothing,
compared to what it was.
Of course.
Yeah. Okay, so we can't really ask you what your mother was like as such, but you speak about your father a lot, obviously, but mainly you mainly spoke about like the party and things like that. What else can you say about him?
My father was a very, very funny joker.
Yeah.
People loved him for his jokes. He was lovable. Like I say, he only ever hit me once. That was when I tried to burn the house down, like I said earlier. But he was very, very funny, very lovable. But the only thing wrong with him, he was unpredictable with his timekeeping.
Oh, yeah.
Jamaican time is different to English time.
Yeah.
And, sometimes we'd sit there waiting for him to come and collect us on a Saturday, and he didn't turn up. And don't get me wrong, that passes on to you. Mm-hmm. Because when I raised my children, when me and one of my child's mother split up, I used to do the same thing. Mm-hmm. I used to arrange to go and pick her up. She'd be sat there waiting for me, no daddy. And that alone, like I say, can make you cry, can break your heart.
Yeah.
You become undependable. And in the end, they grow up thinking you don't care.
So it reinforces the low priority, things like that.
Of course, yeah. So yeah, he was a very funny man, very popular. He used to have people in his house just for drinks and to smoke a spliff. Mm-hmm. And they used to come there just to tell jokes. They might pop in for 5 minutes, they might pop in for 2 hours. He'd have his Bob Marley music on, he loved his music. He had lots and lots of vinyl. And for us, it was fun times when we went to his house when he didn't have any parties on.
Yeah.
We were then allowed to be children. But then again, after the weekend, when we had to go back to our foster parents, then we were scared, frightened. We knew what was going to happen once we got back. And when you know what's going to happen to you, you sort of change mentally and physically and emotionally inside. He was from Kingston, Spanish Town, Kingston. He had a large family himself. I think I mentioned earlier how many siblings there were. I think there was 5 or 6, 7. And eventually, my auntie, she sent for them one by one. So when my mother first left us, we were, like I said, moved to stay in St. Anne's till we went to our foster parents, and my brother was the last one there to leave there. Mm-hmm. So it was it's a big thing as well in itself, being split up from your brother and sister and then being reunited with them. And I do remember little tiny bits about that. Not too much, but little bits. My father grew up, he liked to have his gambling houses. Gambling houses, obviously where people go to gamble, play cards. It was Coon Can, Kaluki, or Pitter Pat, or it was dominoes. And what he would do is put reggae music on, cook a load of food because he was a good cook, and people would come there, buy the food, sit and play cards, listen to music, and then smoke a spliff, and then go home. And his gambling houses lasted 24 hours, but you always knew where to find him.
Yeah.
And that is Jamaican culture. That was his way of, as he calls it, hustling money,
right?
Just to get by.
Yeah.
So he'd make money, feed the family. And don't forget, after we were split up from my father, he then had 4 more children. And then he had more children with somebody else, more children with somebody else. So even when we went to his house at weekends, half the time we didn't see him because he loved his horse racing.
Yeah. Right. Okay.
First thing in the morning, newspaper out, horse racing page, picking out some horses, and again that was a behaviour I picked up.
The gambling side of
The
things.
gambling
Yeah.
side of it, yes. And it's only this past year and a half that I've totally stopped.
Right. Okay.
If I do have a gamble, a bet, it's because I want to.
Yeah.
It's because it's exactly.
Yeah.
It's for a bit of fun, and if I win something, I win something. If I lose something, it's not damaging.
Good.
One of my previous bosses taught me that, and there's a big campaign going off now saying, for fun. If it gets beyond that, seek help.
Say when the fun stops, stop.
That's right. When the fun stops. And like I say, he lived in St Anne's most of his life, and St Anne's at that time, like I said earlier, you had the Teddy Boys.
Yeah.
And people can't imagine this day and age going back to the terraced houses down St Anne's, to the Teddy Boys, to the black culture, and it was literally keep yourselves to yourselves.
Yeah.
So the whites grew up in their congregation, and the Jamaicans did, the black people did, and it worked until obviously till the English people got into being able to buy cannabis, loving the reggae music, loving the parties,
taking on the culture essentially. Yeah.
taking on the culture, tasting the food and loving the food. So those times when they did sort of amalgamate and started mixing together, it was a better and happier time.
Yeah.
It was a better and happier time. And like I said, St Anne's does go down historically in Nottingham.
Yeah.
Because of things that have happened since then and the way it's changed. But it's a totally different place again today.
Yeah. In what sense?
St Anne's turned into a place at one point in the very late 70s, early 80s. It's a place where the local councils could dump all the people who weren't working.
Yeah. So it's not got a good reputation.
No.
Yeah.
So you put a mixture of dysfunctional families in one place, all you get is chaos.
Yeah, it's kind of comes back to the political side of things, isn't it? They put anyone who might be a possibility of things like committing crime and doing bad things. They put them all in one place so that they can then, if you put people like that in environments that breed crime, then they make money from putting them in prison and things like that. And it's a political side.
Of course, and don't forget, it's easier to police if you know where
all
the problems lie.
Yeah.
The only problem you've got there is if you've got people with psychological and mental health problems.
Right. Okay.
Living side by side. Half of them don't get on, so
it exasperates the issue, doesn't it?
Of course it does. Of course it does. But over the years, like I say, it went through a time where it was really bad with gang crime, gun crime. Then it went to a place which was very nice to live, and still is. But you still have pockets of gang culture inside St Anne's. It's an area where people won't go. If you go after a certain time, you're asking for trouble. And obviously the knife crime in Nottingham is escalating.
Yeah.
And St Anne's is always a focal point for that.
Yeah. So there's they're fortunate there's quite a lot of initiatives at the moment to stop that, but it's still, like you say, it's still escalating, isn't it?
Of course it is, yes. Of course it is. And people are working on it. There's some very good work being done in St Anne's and other areas as well.
Yeah. Which is all about, say that's the thing. It's all about stopping kids from going, things like going to gangs, being out on the streets and things like that. But that doesn't. It's harder to go. It goes back to the thing where if you grow up with it, if you stop that as early as possible, then it doesn't happen. But obviously that isn't. You can't make that stop the people that are already, 20s, 30s plus. You don't know, and that's all they've known.
Yeah, you have to remember. A lot of the parents of that generation, my generation, all they knew was beatings, structure in your life, in your household, where you've got to do certain chores before you leave the house.
Right.
Your father not being around a lot, your mother being dependent on alcohol. Not all families, but a lot of the St Anne's people were like that.
Right, okay.
So if they haven't got time for the kids, then the kids are going to grow up not knowing what's right from what's wrong.
Yeah.
And that will never change.
And if it's so if it's not those particular issues, it's one or another kind of thing. Yeah, I see.
Of course. And you have to remember there's lots of forms of abuse, domestic violence, domestic abuse, drug dependent, alcohol dependent, gambling addictions. You've got all those in one area, and it creates a culture that just want to do those few things.
Yeah, because if you put people with one specific problem in there with other people, all that's going to do is just develop more.
Of course.
And yeah, I know what you mean.
As for my mother, we'll elaborate later on. You know, I didn't see her till I was 30. My daughter was born, so it's 32 hours,
Right,
32
okay.
years old. My sister inquired through the Salvation Army, who were very, very good.
Yeah.
They traced my mother to a place in Ireland, discovered she had 4 children, and again, one of the children grew up in Australia, not with my mother and her father. So I don't know the story for that one. But she had raised 3 children in Republic of Ireland, and they had what we consider to be a privileged upbringing. They wouldn't have felt, or we can't imagine them living through the pain we lived through.
Yeah.
You know, we try and imagine what was it like for them to do this, to be able to play in the park with their mother and father, to go here and there, and mentally that can bring you down as well, just thinking about things like that. I try and put myself in their position, thinking what would they be like being raised like we were, like animals. I think a lot about that. But she came over for a long weekend, so we met her. I had a market barra in Exchange Walk in Nottingham at the time. She turned up, and then when she left, I broke down because it was like she was leaving again.
Yeah.
So there's all those emotions that come out. A lot of emotions. It's a big thing actually going to meet her for the first time, and then when she leaves, just like that again.
Like the psychological effect of that abandonment is obviously just, even 30 years on, it still has the same effect.
And it does mess with your head.
Yeah. Well, so it's going to bring back, like you say, memories of, like, they're going to be flooding back from a time that you didn't know what was going on, like all those emotions coming back at once.
I think, and don't forget, you also want questions answered as well.
Yeah.
Why did you leave us?
Yes. Did you so you said that she was there for, was it like a week? She came over for a weekend, was it also?
Long weekend, I think. Yeah.
So like, obviously, did you try and refrain from bringing stuff like that up, or was it trying to keep it as civil as possible, kind of thing? How did it go?
You've got to imagine you've not seen your mother for 36, most of your early life.
Yeah.
And you don't want to ask those kind of questions on that first.
Yeah, exactly. It's not just a, wow, I see you, so why did you leave? It's not like something like that. And I do get that. But I think it's, yeah.
You imagine, you know, you yourself, Jack, being brought up by your parents. Every day you get a cuddle and a hug. We never had that.
Yeah.
So how do you hug your mother, someone you've not seen?
Yeah, exactly. Well, yeah, it's
a strange feeling.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, because you know that you are like you are attached to this person in some way, but also you're not, because they've not been there for so long. Yeah.
And then they go away again, but it's what do you ask in between?
Yeah.
It's hard to talk to your mother if she's abandoned you. You know, you've got to ask the questions. People say to me, she had no choice but to leave you behind. But we do have choices.
Yeah.
They say it was hard then, or it's hard now as well. And so you don't ask those questions. You know, she goes away, you break down again. I think that night, that particular night, I think I got drunk and went out and caused a fight with somebody.
Yeah.
That's what I was like. And it had a knock-on effect because, like I said to you previously, I can't put my arms around my daughters and love them like I'm supposed to because I don't know what love is.
Right. Okay, so going back to the time that you witnessed your sister being raped, what was going through your head kind of at the time, and what's going through your head like now, like, and what's kind of changed?
I often talk to my wife about that first night, and you know, as a child, after those beatings, being rescued, then being put back in there, and then seeing foster father come into the room that night and rape my sister. I say to my wife now, I'm glad I wasn't born a girl.
Mm.
And I try and put myself in my sister's place now, and realise some of the things that she went through because she had to.
Mm.
And I'm still processing now.
Yeah.
Still trying to imagine how she felt. You know, my side was, my uncle called me many names, he even called me the name of the dog, which we had a dog called Charlie. He used to call me Charlie sometimes. He called me everything but my name. Because he could get away with it. And those days we were dying to be rescued. Every time somebody knocked on the door, we used to hope it was someone who was rescuing us. Or my father coming to pick us up. When we found out it was somebody else, you go from a high to a low, and your heart starts beating. And you're saying, please, and you're praying, please save me, and no one does. So what my sister must have been going through, I don't know. And I think that did something to me, to my memory being blocked out that first night.
Yeah.
Because I still shared a room with her for possibly 2.5 years, 3 years after that.
Mm-hmm.
But I don't remember anything else. I know he used to come in most nights, but I only remember that first night. And, you know, it did do something to me. My saviour was getting into music.
Yeah.
Like I said, I was a big Northern Soul fan.
Mm-hmm.
Northern Soul saved me. Me learning to dance, I had the freedom to dance. And I used to love my Northern Soul. So me and my friend Skelly, started saving a collection of Northern Soul vinyl. And as and when I could run away, we used to run away. And to all-nighters, all-dayers, just for that release.
Yeah.
Knowing when I got back, I got
Yeah.
beatings, but that was part of my life. That was the way my life was, them days.
So was the Northern Soul like the only thing you could use for that kind of freedom, or was there anything else that you relied on?
There were certain aspects in my school days, and I did say a certain teacher had a Volkswagen Golf. It wasn't. It was a Volkswagen Beetle, orange one. And there was a person who was my role model. There were two people, in fact, and that was my BB boss, Skipper, as we called him, Skipper, Mr. Quarton. I looked at Mr. Quarton and Skelly's father as the two kind of fathers I wanted.
Like the two, like,
they were my role
models
models.
that were in your life, yeah.
And Mr. Quarton did a lot for me. You know, he encouraged and pushed my running. He knew things weren't right with us as well, as did everybody. But but the Boys Brigade was a place where I enjoyed going, and especially for the field trips, the campings, getting away when we could, when we were allowed to. And I have happy memories of the Boys Brigade.
I remember in the last podcast you mentioned that your uncle used to try and make it so you couldn't go to, like, I remember you saying that when you were the drummer in the parade and things like that, Did he ever? What did he do? Did he ever try and stop you from going away to your Northern Soul and things like that? Did he do his best to stop that, or was it?
Do you know what? Do you know what's ironic? What's ironic is we watch Coronation Street. I'm not going to say I'm embarrassed to say, but yeah, we watch Coronation Street, and some of the storylines they touched up on prior to Christmas was the young man who was raped as a child. Didn't quite get the storyline. They didn't quite get the storyline right. Or they should have followed it up by what happens, what's the aftercare on that for his mental health. They just touched on the perpetrator, what had happened to him, and then it was on to another story.
Yeah.
Which, if you're going to try and get something out there, you should follow it to the end.
You need to. It will raise awareness, but it's probably less helpful just saying what happened as opposed to showing what people then need to go through, because
of course
the way to help people. I mean, I'm obviously no expert, but you need to show someone going through this and then show what they then need to do, not just show it happening, kind of thing.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Well, obviously, the latest story is about Jeff abusing his wife.
Right.
And they're the kind of things that happen to us. So when we was in the Boys Brigade and doing the things we enjoyed, he used to get pleasure
from preventing
it.
Yeah.
So, you have to sit there and think and imagine, was he sat there laughing to himself? He must have known what the detrimental effect it would have on us.
Yeah.
And was not interested. But he had great pleasure in stopping us from attending certain things. Yeah, from enjoying ourselves.
Yeah.
We weren't allowed to enjoy ourselves. If he had his way, he would have had a cage in that house and stuck us in there.
Right.
And throughout the years, as I've known him, he has tried in the past to put the blame on somebody else. Everybody but himself. And you know yourself, your actions, you're responsible for your actions. When you do something that is really bad, you'll never forget that. He talks as though nothing's happened.
He feels like all of this that he was doing was just, there was no wrong doing whatsoever. Yeah.
So then it takes you back to, was it a learned and normal behaviour for him?
Yeah.
To walk around the streets and to drink with people. My friends' fathers, he drinks with them thinking everything's all right. It's normal.
Yeah.
No, it's not. No, it's not.
So it just goes back to the psychological side of things. And if you believe what you're doing is fine, then it's never gonna stop, is it?
No. And don't forget about in the old days with joining the Forest Naughty 40 and being a football hooligan in Nottingham with one of the best firms in England. That was my side coming out of the hooligan side, the fighting, even though I was only a young lad. And then there was a side where I was in the Boys Brigade and the runner.
Yeah.
And, you look at people and they say, I'm bipolar. There's probably 3 or 4 sides to me.
Yeah, because there was clearly that from the Boys Brigade and the army, there was that need for discipline and structure in there, but also you've got the side that you've grown up and there was a lot of emotions that you needed to get out, and unfortunately the fighting was one of them, wasn't it?
Of course. And it's hard to go through life trying to break the cycles of being a fighter, of being instructed what to do when I can do it myself and answer my own questions. It's very, very hard, and it has an impact on the way you grow up, which hopefully we'll discuss in the next episode.
Yep. So it was still got quite a few things to go through and more reflections to see, I think. Yes,
and I'll say this to Jack Kerr now. I don't know if anybody wants to ask a question, if they can on.
If you do have any questions about the that you want to ask David, either just comment them or I'll put something out so you can send them in, and that way we can keep asking, keep keep reflecting on what's been said.
Yes, and I hope people spread the word so that
Yeah.
other people get an insight into what it's like being brought up by an abusive parent. It may be able to help you in the future. So until the next episode, Jack, from me, thank you for that.
Yep. Thanks, and goodbye to everyone. You enjoyed the podcast.